Day 86, and this is going to take a few minutes to explain. We had a total of 4 agendas today, and I think more time was spent on the House floor waiting for negotiations to happen in another room than it actually took for us to vote on the bills we had in front of us. We started out with 2 bills on campaign finance and disclosure, House Bills 129 and 265. Then we had Senate Bill 81. This is a school privatization bill that we had killed before, well, it was tabled in appropriations, but then they managed to get it off of the table in appropriations with an 11-10 vote, so a very close bipartisan vote, and we had to deal with it today on second reading in the House. It allows for tax credits for contributions to scholarship organizations, and it's so interesting to hear the same politicians rail against tax credits over and over and over again, but then say, but we like this one. It's an ALEC bill, and school privatization is one of ALEC's top agenda items. It's also interesting that the same people who are totally against all entitlements in every single form are for this one. And it's already tax deductible to give contributions to most scholarship organizations. Representative Balance is officially a teacher hater. She just came right out on the floor today and said, come on, we all know these guys are doing a bad job. We all know that schools aren't doing what they need to be doing. It was so offensive. It was disgusting. And I was so proud of our minority whip, Representative McClafferty, for standing up and saying, excuse me, we do a damn good job. So I was really thankful for her for standing up for teachers everywhere. And I can't prove it yet, but I would love for someone to check into this. Not only is this same bill being passed in other states, but I am pretty sure that if we found the legislative video of the speeches in the House of Representatives of other states, I bet the same speech is given also. The speech that was read on the House floor today about why we should pass this bill felt a little contrived to me. I think we might have actually gotten to a point where not only are the bills the same language, but the talking points and the speeches that are made in the legislature are also the same. Can't prove it, just a gut feeling that I have. So then we had Senate Bill 148, which is a bill that reduces the amount of lost wages that an employee can be awarded when they have been wrongfully discharged. Please understand how egregious wrongful discharge is. In order to be convicted of a wrongful discharge, an employer has to break their own written procedure. And the lawyers already don't take wrongful discharge cases because it is limited to such a small amount of recovery. And this bill would make that even smaller, to the point that no lawyer is ever going to take any wrongful discharge case because it's not worth it to them. And Representative Fitzpatrick said this bill is about fairness and balance. Really? For whom? This bill is not about fairness and balance for any worker in the state of Montana, and that's me and that's you. And this bill is not about fairness and balance for us. So who is it about fairness and balance for? It's disgusting. So then we had a second agenda, and the second agenda had House Bill 240, which is guns on campus again. Well, they passed 282 today, and this bill raises the bottom tax rate, the one that a lot of Montanans use. It lowers the top tax rate, the one that very few Montanans use. It keeps the endowment credit. And so even though we didn't have an updated fiscal note, which has kept us from voting on some Democrat bills, we went ahead and pushed this bill through today, even though we have no idea what the actual cost on it is. Just hypocrisy on all kinds of levels. So once again, which bills aren't you able to get passed because you're the majority? We had a third agenda today that was supposed to start at 8 p.m., but someone somewhere in another room was negotiating, and so we didn't start until 10:40 p.m. So if I seem a little bit crabby, that's why. So we had House Bill 410. This was the only bill on the agenda. Look at how tiny it is. It's a 14-line bill. And it is a bill to authorize transfers in order to implement the budget, House Bill 2. But the negotiations that were worked out were amendments brought by the Speaker. The Speaker hardly ever speaks on any bills. I bet I've heard him speak on 2 or maybe 3 actual bills this whole session. He moved an amendment that gives $2 million to a corrections operations account, $2 million to a public health operations account, $7.5 million to a governor's operations account, and $2 million to the Department of Labor and Industry operations account. So a total of $13.5 million in these special accounts, including $7.5 million in a new account called the Governor's Operations account. It also unrestricts $60 million in House Bill 2 for Medicaid, but specifically says the funds may not be used to expand the Medicaid program, and only may be used only to pay for Medicaid services for existing eligible Medicaid enrollees for expenses recorded as benefits and claims, and may not be transferred to other uses in the department. So it's $60 million that were already in the bill but now are unrestricted, but it explicitly says it cannot be used for any form of Medicaid expansion. So a 14-line bill with 4 pages of amendments. Then we moved right into the 4th agenda with no break, and it was kind of inconsequential after all the things that had happened. It was the governor's amendments changing the date on Senate Bill 28 and unanimous amendments to a school safety bill, I can't read my own handwriting, Senate Bill 348. We, at the end of the day, had 2 motions to override governor's vetoes. And this was a tough one. One was a motion to override the governor's veto of House Bill 522. It was a nullification bill. I do think it was a nullification bill that a lot of Montanans had an appetite for. I would have liked to have voted for this, but the governor's argument is that we are seeing nullification bill after nullification bill come across his desk, asking for a really extreme agenda that most Montanans aren't for. And if we're going to use the argument that we are not the nullification state and we're not about nullification, then what's good for one is good for the other. I kind of have a hard time going for that, but I'm also the person who always says they hate all tax credits except for this special one. So maybe it's hypocritical of me to say I'm against all nullification except for this one. We also had a motion to override the governor's veto to House Bill 162, which mandates a high deductible health care plan option for state employees. And the governor's veto said, this is already an option. Let's not mandate anything. And so I did not vote to override his veto. I voted to uphold his veto. So some interesting party politics today, some interesting negotiating happening, and a whole lot of waiting around. I do think tomorrow will be the last day for the House of Representatives. Good night.